Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Sunday night live stream. Let me align everything as much as I can. Let me see what we got here. I think we have it. It's been a while, huh? What's going on out there? This is Robert Phoenix, and it is 10 o'clock here on a absolutely mega, I'm talking mega Capricorn night. By tomorrow night, the moon is going to be moving into phase with the sun, and we're going to have, let's see, where are we, the 15th? Looks like we're going to have a new moon again in Capricorn. There's Island. Hey, what's going on? So this whole thing with the live stream is absolutely brand new, and so it's taken me a little while to get used to it. And I'm not even sure that I need OBS, which is a client, to interface with the live stream. And that's when I was putting charts up, was with OBS. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'll try to put the charts up again tonight. There's Christine. Hi, Christine. I'll try to put the charts up again tonight, but I can't guarantee we're going to have visuals tonight. So we'll do the best we can. How is everybody? Thanks for hanging out here fairly late on a Sunday night. One of the new things about the YouTube live stream, there's Joe. Hi, Joe. One of the new things about the YouTube live stream that I do like is the fact that you can crank it up right away. Before, if you haven't done the live stream exercise, hi, Jessica. If you haven't done the live stream exercise before, you would have to go in and program the time and everything. Like right now, it's like, they're trying to, I think, sync it up to Facebook and it's just like go live. But I'm still going to have to try to figure out how to do the charts with this new system. Just going to play around with it a little bit. Pop out chat, participants, toggle timestamps. No, we're not going to do that. Anyway, thanks for showing up late on a Sunday night. It's been a while since we got together. I think it was before Christmas. That was the, hey, Mr. Gray Bill. Hi, Mr. Gray Bill. It was before Christmas since we did a little bit of a astrology thing on here. I've been populating some shows over on Spreaker Monday through Friday with the Friday Forecast. So tonight we're going to try to get into some astrology. We're going to jump back in and keep it on the light side a little bit, although I'm sure we'll go off into some arcana. And I'm really going to hope that that this. Let me try it right now. Let me just see if I'm going to try to put up the chart of the moment right now. And let's see what happens here. So I'm going to grab an image, which is what I normally do with OBS. So I'm going to grab an image and let's see what happens. I'm going to add this thing. Add image. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Create a new image. So we're in kind of a test mode here. Because I went through the whole show last time. And apparently none of the images showed up, and I was just so focused, I was so dialed in on everybody and the whole experience. So let's see what we got here. Let's do a chart of the moment so we get up to, now let's see, which one is this? Chart of the moment. Let's see if this is it. No? This it? No? Moment, here it is, right here. All right, so let's do this. Open it up and put it up here. Is it popping? No. So this is a problem now because YouTube has decided that they're going to take over the end-to-end user experience. So right now, as I look at OBS, I can actually see the chart. And unfortunately, you cannot. So here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to kind of play along at home. And tonight's charts are pretty easy. So I'm going to go over them one at a time so that we can kind of get a sense as to where we are. So it's unfortunate. I don't know how to bring the new charts up. YouTube doesn't alert me. Oh, I sound, thanks, Jan. I was pretty, this is the worst time they've ever had for a cedar in Texas in like 50 years, these cedar trees. So why don't we do this? If everybody could go, we're going to have to kind of wing this. because I don't have. I said I was not well. I was not well. I don't have the ability to, like I said, post the charts. I got to figure this out. This is my first time back. So here's what we're going to do. I want, if you can get online, go to astro.com. And when you go to astro.com, you'll see that there is the chart of the moment. And that's where the ephemeris is. And right below the ephemeris for what's happening right now, you can hit chart of the moment. So if you could all turn to page 574 and just go to astro.com and go to that homepage, look for the ephemeris. It's on the right-hand side. Don't look for it at the top. And then it says chart of the moment. So I'll give everybody a couple of moments here to find that, because I don't know how to post the new charts now. Bummer. So today, while you're going to astro.com and finding that chart, today was the playoffs in the NFL, and yesterday and today, and astrologically, if you want to look at the quarterbacks that are going to be playing next week, we have two Aquarians, Case Keenum and Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a 0 Aquarius. Case Keenum is born on the 17th of February. So he's right at the end. He's like around 25, 26 Aquarius. And of course, Tom Brady, the ever-present Leo, the Lion King of quarterbacks in the NFL. And Blake Bortles, a Taurus, a rare Taurus, appearing at the height of the pantheon of NFL gunslingers. Normally, you don't see heavy Taurus at the top of the quarterback pantheon. Most quarterbacks, by the way, that I've seen that are exceptional quarterbacks tend to be either Leos or Capricorns. And I think that there are two reasons for that. Number one, Leos love to be on the stage. And you can find Leos scattered all throughout athletics, and most of them do quite well. They love being on the stage. They love performing. And by and large, they have a real strong fire for competition. Capricorn is an interesting question as to why they would make a good quarterback. And my feeling about that is, and I could take two Capricorn quarterbacks right off the top of my head without going through the list of Capricorn quarterbacks, Joe Flacco and Eli Manning. If you've ever seen Joe Flacco and Eli Manning, these guys just flatline. They're just total flatliners. Nothing phases them. They screw up, they have a great play, So, and I'm not saying that that's how all Capricorns are, but nothing phases them. So I've seen pretty consistent success from Leo quarterbacks and Capricorn quarterbacks. Now, Eli Manning's brother, Peyton, was an Aries. And for all of Peyton's skills and accolades, he only won 2 Super Bowls, which is more than quite a few, but quarterbacks. But Peyton was always considered to be somebody who would fall out of the moment. Like he'd get to a certain point and he couldn't get any further. Anyway, we're looking at 2 Aquarians, a Leo and a Taurus for the games next week. So if you didn't see the game tonight, it was pretty amazing. It came down to the last play in Minnesota, and Case Keenum threw a kind of a Hail Mary pass with just a few seconds left. And what was really interesting about that play is the reaction that Keenum and then the receiver for Minnesota, Stephon Diggs, had. So they asked Case Keenum about that moment. He said it was the 3rd greatest moment in his life. And he listed them in order. That my first greatest moment was when I found Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I have absolutely no problem with that. And then his second greatest moment was his wife. Doesn't have any kids, so this was number 3. And then they talked to Stephon Diggs. I don't know his sign. They talked to Stephon Diggs. They asked him what he thought of the moment. And he says, wouldn't have happened without God. Praise God. Glory to God. So what's really interesting is kind of in an atheistic society, or at least what kind of as it's evolving, we didn't see a lot of this in pro football for a long time. And now it's coming back. We're starting to have kind of more of these very public accolades about faith in the NFL. Now, of course, there was a guy that screwed up on the play, and I'm trying to understand what his relationship with God might be right now. It's all a lesson, right? It's all a lesson for the learning and being humble. I mean, I totally get that, and I'm not disparaging it. But it was a miraculous play. This is why I'm bringing it up, because it was a miraculous play. And when we talk about miracles and divine, of course, we're verging into magic and religion and spirituality, when things can happen when they're not necessarily supposed to happen. Against all odds, that play occurred. Okay, so I think you have all probably gone to astro.com and are looking at the chart of the moment, which I'm going to pull up and I'm going to talk about because it's a pretty interesting chart. So this is happening right now. And so actually this is going to be so yeah, this is the chart of the moment. So we got Scorpio. Well, okay, so you know what I need to do? I need because this is set for my chart and you're going to see something different. So let me do this. Let me quickly go into my chart, or at least astro.com, and let me grab the chart of the moment as it is right now in the continental US, because my chart is selected for France, which is where I was born. So let me just get out of this here. One more time. Here we go. All right. Oh, they have an Astro on Demand. That's interesting. It's a cable channel. How about that? Looks like it's a Chinese cable channel. Jackie Chan. Okay, so let's just punch up the chart of the moment right now, because I was looking at it from the European. See, it's different. Yeah, it's different. Of course, it's different. Okay, so here we go. The chart of the moment. And if you look at it, what we have, at least for, is this going to be, this is an unknown place, England, UK. Why do they do this? I don't want them to do that. So this is what happens when you can't put the charts up, because I would have changed this. Hold on one second. Guess I'm going to change my chart for a second. Here we go. I'm going to log in. Give me one moment here, and we're going to just change a few things around. Okay, and then the reason why I keep my chart for Verdun is because I get to see the transits on my natal chart, but because I am in Texas, it's a bit different. And one of these nights, maybe we'll do this tonight. Maybe we can get into the relocated chart tonight. You know what else? I've got a few readings I've got to do from last year where people send in their birth time and stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to modify my reference place, and I'm going to get out of the birthplace. And we're going to get into Austin, Texas. By the way, if you're not aware of relocation and you are thinking about moving, I highly, 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 highly recommend it. Relocation is the real deal. It is the fashizzle, the shiznit. And I'll tell you about my story. But before I tell you about my story, I'll tell you a story about a woman who is a client of mine in California. And okay, so now we're going to go into the chart of the moment. And she had just a hell of a time living in California, and still does. Nothing ever really felt right. Nothing ever really clicked. And I read her chart, and I looked at her chart, and I said, you have to get out of here. You have to get out of here. You have to leave California, because Neptune is right on your ascendant. And there were a few other things there. that I was looking at. Okay, I got the chart at the moment now. There were a few other things on her chart, but I saw Neptune on her ascendant. And it's like, that's one of the most difficult places to live. Now, she wasn't born in California. She was born outside of California. So she had to get to I forget where I think she might have been born in Texas, actually. So when she went to California, that true note on the ascendant, Neptune on the ascendant kicked in. Okay. Now, if you're living with Neptune on your ascendant most of your life, guess what happens? You kind of get used to it. You're born into it. You go through it. You swim through it. And ultimately, you learn how to kind of nav Neptune on the ascendant, which is, I think, one of the most difficult planets on the ascendant to have. But when you move from a place and you go to a place where all of a sudden Neptune is relocated onto the ascendant, then all of a sudden you're in a completely different universe, and it may take you a while. But one of the things you'll have to get used to with living with Neptune on your ascendant is letting go of things. Let go, surrender, let go, surrender, have faith, let go, surrender. But there's nothing ever really stable. It's always like there's, water rushing beneath the feet on the ascendant. So I told her, I said, if you leave California, your life's going to change. And when I said this was back in 2010, 2010, I think was the first time I gave her a reading. It's now 2018, and I was in California over the holidays, and I didn't see her. I inquired about how she was doing, and she's doing the exact same way she was doing when I left in 2010. And it's because this Neptunian energy on the ascendant, it's just very hard to get traction. Now, here is where you can, this is a little bit of an astrological lesson. If you work in a Neptunian institution, then you might be able to handle Neptune on the ascendant. So what are Neptunian institutions? Well, they're those places that we don't see. Hospitals, mental institutions, recovery centers, prisons. These are all kind of the functional, Neptune, Piscean, 12th house institutions. She could be involved in water or oil, which would be really great, but that's not what she does. And I think this is so bizarre, okay? It's so bizarre. She does organization for people. She's like an organization guru. And I'm sure she's good at it. But with Neptune on the ascendant, do you really want to have, that's not taking advantage of the rising sign or the ascendant. Okay, because obviously she's kind of born around my age, so she's got Neptune in Scorpio. So she's a Scorpio rising with Neptune right on the ascendant. I don't think it's the best for organization. Let's put it that way. Now, maybe it's because there's the 6th house, or the 7th house, which, by the way, would not be Pisces. It would be Taurus, and maybe being grounded and working with other people and organizing their lives. Maybe that would be suitable. Anyway, relocation is really important. And I've told my story about relocation, going from California to Texas, and I'm not going to, bore you with it. But if you're thinking of moving, you should really look into relocation. Now, astro.com has some great resources that you can tap into. If you enter your chart into astro.com and you actually go to the top of the site, you'll see a bunch of little goodies there. And one of the things that they have is called travel. And you can click on that, and what it'll do is it will give you kind of a thumbnail sketch for astrocartography. Okay, astrocartography. So you get to see where your planets are lining up on the cardinal points, because that's what astrocartography does. Now, remember, the cardinal points are the ascendant, the 4th house or the IC, the descendant or the 7th house, and the 10th house or the MC. Those are really important parts of your chart because they represent areas of personal growth and access to the world. The ascendant is who you are every day. The ruler of the ascendant, theoretically, is Aries, so it represents your visage, your face, your appearance, how you appear to the world. You step outside your door, you're activating your ascendant. Your 4th house is your home, your emotional upbringing, sometimes your emotional baggage. It can represent mother. And I've seen in many cases that the 4th house sign will be the same sign as the sign of the mother. It certainly is in my case, Pisces and the Pisces mother. It is your emotional background. It's what you grew up with and what, where your emotional values are. That's the 4th house. The 7th house is who you hang out with on a one-to-one level, personal interaction. These are people that you bond with. You mate with them. You have business relations with them, not at the same time. Although, who knows? This day and age, maybe. I don't know. That would be dangerous, right? 7th house. You get into the business and the mating thing, and all of a sudden you got a Me Too firestorm. Anyway, but that's it. One-on-one, like intense one-on-one relationships. And of course, the midheaven is the world where you take, your skills, your gifts, your abilities, and your standing. And if the 4th house is the mother, then in most cases, the 10th house is the father, representative of the father. Okay. So when they do astrocartography, it's a program that basically splays your chart across the entire planet. And you can see where the planets are lining up on your cardinal points in your chart. And if you ever want to live in a great place, go live on your sun line on the ascendant. That you're going to have a much better chance of having an easy and kind of graceful experience with the sun and your ascendant. Jupiter can be really good on the ascendant too, although you may gain a lot of weight with Jupiter on the ascendant. Don't live on Neptune. Stay away from Neptune on the ascendant. Saturn can be a difficult taskmaster on the ascendant. And when people, unless they really, really want to get super disciplined and, they want to, go into sort of the deep clarity that Saturn can bring. No, stay away from Saturn on the ascendant. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes you just wind up on a Saturnian location. I'll tell you a really interesting story. So I was born in France, and so I have Pluto very close to my midheaven. And one time I went to London. This is back in 1984. And as I went as you move from France to London, Pluto gets closer to my midheaven. So, of course, Pluto, planet death and sex and resurrection and all that stuff, intensity. So I go to London, and man, it was one day, the first day I get there, it's incredibly intense. And long story short, I'm with a group of people. We're traveling to this place called Findhorn. And I'm roaming around London most of the day, just trying to keep it together after the long flight so I can get on that train tonight and get on board and sleep and go to Findhorn. So remember, I've got Pluto on my midheaven running right through London. And so I'm hanging around, and I find this church. In this church, I thought it was kind of a New Age church, and they were having a seminar on death and transformation. And at that time, we were in Scorpio. So I'm thinking, oh, wow, isn't this great? It's Scorpio. It's death and transformation. I'm going to tell my mates. We're all kind of straggling around and just waiting for this train. I said, hey, look, I found this really cool seminar on death and transformation at this church just right around the corner. Let's go. So we go there. We go to this church, and this church is filled with people, and they're all dressed really nicely. And we're not. We're these kind of ragged Americans just waiting to get on the train. We're sleep deprived. And so I go into this church, and the next thing I know, it's like I've just dropped into a memorial for a woman. We just dropped into a memorial for a woman that died. And people are reading poems, they're reading John Donne, and they're playing a cantata, Bach cantata on the cello. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is like bizarre. I felt like we were these spiritual tourists, and it really didn't feel all that great. But it was clearly, for me, after I found out about the Pluto right on my midheaven in London, it was like, wow, I get this. I totally get this. When I saw that on my astrocartography chart, and my first contact with Pluto was death. I mean, it was somebody else's death. It wasn't my death, but it was somebody else's death. So I can go on and on about astrocartography and relocation. But why don't we get to the chart of the moment? So this is what I pulled up right here. We've got Virgo 25 degrees on the ascendant, Now, what's really interesting about this time, if you're looking at the chart at home, check out that hyperstellium in Capricorn. Wow. Look at that. Venus, Sun, Pluto, Mercury, Moon, and Saturn. So in the next couple of days, so we're over the 15th tomorrow, and we flip on, what is it, the 22nd? So the next couple of days, that moon is going to be conjuncting the sun. We're going to have a new moon conjunction in Capricorn, and we're going to have all these planets in Capricorn. Right now, they're in the fourth house. Well, guess what? I'm at home in the fourth house, and I'm telling you all about Capricorn. Yeah, sometimes it works out this way. So let's just take advantage of this moment for a second and recognize that we don't get 6 planets like this in a chart very often. Now, I'm gonna throw out another chart out there. Not now. I'm going to throw out another chart out there, and it's kind of an infamous chart, and it's one of the charts that got me fired from Gaia. We'll look at that after this one, okay? So we have all these planets in Capricorn. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with them? Okay, if you want to get into some long-range planning, I would wait until the new moon, because this moon right now at 4 degrees it's in that balsamic phase, okay? And it's just off of Saturn. I mean, Moon-Saturn conjunctions, I think, are kind of melancholic. I think they're melancholic. And if you've ever hung out with a Moon-Saturn person, they're not easy to be around. They have very clear, very sharp emotions. Very clear. There's not a lot of sentimentality with a Moon-Saturn person, okay? So now, what do I talk about when I talk about the balsamic moon? So when the moon goes all the way around the chart, it goes through the various phases. It goes through new, quarter phase, gibbous, waxing gibbous, full, waning gibbous, all that stuff. Okay, it goes through all those phases. So the last phase of the moon before it becomes new again is called the balsamic moon. And if you know people, or you have the balsamic moon in your charts, then you know what I'm talking about. It is one of the more difficult moon phases to have, because there's literally, just like we get to the 28th or the 29th degree with the anaretic degree, the balsamic moon is there's no more energy in that moon. There's no more energy. There's nothing left with the balsamic moon. When we get to the new moon, we have all this potential and all this young energy on the new moon. We get to the full moon, it is, beaming, illuminated, and shining. And full moon people are very memorable people. Full moon people shine, and that's just the case. That is absolutely the case. New moon people are always eager. They want adventure. They want activity. They want experience. But that balsamic moon, that moon right there at the end, that is a tricky, tricky moon, because you have to let go. You have to let go. Let go, let go, let go. There's nothing left. In some cases, people with balsamic moons, they have things taken from them. They just like, oh, well, that was taken from me. That's another thing. And then, so what's the lesson around? Well, the lesson is, I think, one of profound maturity. And I'm going to make a connection with people that have balsamic moons as being old souls, because that's what I've experienced. That is what I've experienced. The balsamic moon is the representation of the old soul, because they've been around the wheel. They've been around the wheel emotionally. And I find that balsamic moon people are incredibly wise, really, really wise people, because they have to be. They see sort of the cycle of life. They see how, in some ways, they're not even an actor in their own emotional experience, which is kind of hard to believe, but it's true. And so what occurs then is that there's this kind of hollowing out with the balsamic moon, and then something else comes in. There's this other source of life, wisdom, love, if you want to call it God. Come on in, bring it in. Balsamic moon, the cup is open, right? The cup is open, but it's not open of the volition of the individual. That takes place on the new moon, when there's energy and charge, and it's got the charge of the sun. So here we are, we're in balsamic moon. Now this moon is going to have to pass through, right now it's conjunct Mercury. It's going to have to pass through Pluto And that's going to probably be sometime, you have 4 degrees. So later tomorrow night, we're going to have that Moon-Pluto conjunction in the balsamic phase, because Pluto's behind the sun at this point in time, correct? So we've got this balsamic phase, and it's an intense balsamic phase. So I'm assuming that over the course of the next 24 hours, there's going to be a lot of letting go that's taking place. And I think some of it can be very, very painful and very cathartic. Very cathartic. So this is on an individual level, because wherever Capricorn is showing up inside your chart, this is where Pluto, the Moon-Pluto conjunction, and that balsamic moon is going to be taking place. But you know what? Don't freak out. Do not freak out, because the moon will be born new again within a short period of time. A little over 24 hours, and it's going to conjunct Venus on the other side of the sun. So when it conjuncts Venus on the other side of the sun, now we have a Moon-Venus conjunction. And that's where we can have an emotional experience that's new, because it's in the new moon. It's in the new phase. So when we have this, here's how I see this. I see this as a letting go of emotional connection. And it can be very painful. It can be like the death of an emotion, or a death of an emotion connected to a relationship. For some people with Capricorn, it might be a job. You might have to say goodbye to your job, over the course of the next 12, 13 hours. Not that it's going to happen to everybody but we're dealing with Capricorn, right? And also what's really interesting is with this whole conversation about the shithole, which I'll talk about. And we're in, I think that happened when the moon was in Sagittarius, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right? So it happened when? On Friday. So the moon was in Sagittarius on Friday. It was early Sagittarius. And of course, we know who has moon in Sagittarius, Donald John Trump. Interesting comment. I'll talk about that later. So anyway, this Moon-Pluto conjunction is going to be very intense. Might even involve the government a little bit here, because when we talk about Capricorn, we talk about the government, we talk about corporations, hierarchies, bureaucracies. But I'm really looking forward and moving my attention to that Moon-Venus conjunction. And then roughly 2.5 days out from now, with the moon entering into Aquarius. And of course, Aquarius is the sign of hope and the star and the 11th house, the house of dreams and wishes, and tomorrow, the world of tomorrow. But for now, this moon phase is going to be very interesting and very, very intense. Now, there are people out there and in the chat room, obviously, who are incredibly empathic, okay? Empathic. And I think one of the things that we might experience over the course of the next 24 hours is kind of this impending feeling of doom. I feel like that this is also kind of connected to this Moon-Pluto conjunction in the balsamic phase. We just had this missile scare, this bizarre missile scare in Hawaii, which I believe was a psychological operation. That was a psyop, because all of a sudden, Kim decides Kim is going to talk to Moon. Speaking of Moon, Kim is going to talk to Moon, and he's going to do an end around with the United States, and he's going to go a diplomatic route. And the United States now is kind of left holding, pardon my language, its pecker, while these two cats over in North and South Korea are actually going to sit down and talk and have a conversation about. In fact, I think they're going to have North Koreans and South Koreans playing on the same hockey team. Hello. So while that's happening, of course, they have to ratchet up our fear. And we have this bizarre event happening in Hawaii. I mean, this thing, what would be the equivalent of this event? I don't know if we've seen anything like this before. I mean, even Y2K wasn't that bad. It wasn't even nearly that bad. I mean, these people were basically calling people and saying goodbye. And I mean, it was, I think it's a psychological operation, because they need to generate the fear. They need to generate the fear because Kim and Moon are sitting down. They're actually having conversations. So here we go. Now, when that happens, I mean, think about that for a moment, just for a moment. By the way, Hawaii is a sentient, I mean, everything is sentient, but Hawaii is a super sentient geological structure. To me, Hawaii is like a dream generator. And what I mean by that is that if you've got anything hidden in your subconscious in Hawaii and you go there and you're not resolved, that island is going to shake it out of you. And if it doesn't like you, it'll kick your ass back to the mainland. It's happened to me. I've seen it happen to people. That is a very powerful place. So what happened there? What happened there in Hawaii with that false alarm and generating all that fear of that people? Well, that island's not going to be very happy. I can tell you that right now. Rest assured, because it actually cares about, really loves the people that are on those islands. Yeah, there's schmucks. I'm sure there's schmucks everywhere. But there, if you're going to be in Hawaii, man, you got to get Hawaii, or else you really can't hang out. So the other thing, too, is think about the fear that was generated during that experience. And that happened Friday again. That was during the Sagittarian moon. So we had this Sagittarian lunar sort of alarm taking place in two areas. The shithole comment, of course, the next day, yesterday, with the false alarm. So anyway, we've got this massive stellium. And right now it's in the 4th house, right here in Austin, Texas. It's in my home. Now, luckily, we got a few interesting things going on with that stellium. Saturn is in a kind of in a trine. It's a wide trine because it's still early degree Saturn. So we have an early degree Saturn trine Uranus in Aries. Now, when Saturn gets up to, by the time Saturn gets up to like 25 degrees, or the Uranus will be in Taurus at that time. And it won't be trine Taurus, but we're getting kind of an out of sign trine right now, which is kind of cool in a lot of ways, because when we talk about Saturn, we talk about Uranus together. We're talking about the mainstream and doing things in a way that we always do them. We reanimate the moment, we reanimate the culture through Saturn. But Uranus brings us novelty, and it brings us newness and technology, and it can disrupt us. But when it's in trine with Saturn, there's kind of this really interesting flow between the two. So in terms of your own life, you may want to look at how you can upgrade your technological skills, or you may want to look at how you can reinfuse your everyday Saturnian life with kind of a more innovative and original Uranian expression. So that means you don't have to tear everything down. You don't have to tear it down. When you get a Saturn Uranus trine, it's like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to be grounded, but also kind of play a little bit and be creative, be experimental, do something different, introduce yourself in a different way. I mean, kind of cast off the shackles of the everyday Saturnine experience with the Saturn Uranus trine. Now, in the big picture, the grand scheme of things, well, this could be a I don't know, governmental march towards a new type of technology. I mean, certainly corporations with Saturn and Uranus are going to get on quite well right now. And we've just seen the iPhone 10 hit the market. Who knows what else is going to come out of CES? But definitely there's this sort of co-creative relationship between corporations and everything that's Saturnian and Uranus technology. Now, Uranus is in Aries, which is the individual. It's the last outpost of the individual, Uranus and Aries. When it goes into Taurus, we're dealing with money. And we're dealing with things like cryptocurrencies and AI and automation and all that stuff. So Uranus and Aries is the last outpost of the human. Catch it while you can. In May, it goes into Taurus. And it goes retrograde, and I think we get 3 more months of it in 2019. So we'll have one little sort of last goodbye to the human experience before we embrace AI through Uranus. No, that's not really true, but it's there right now in Aries. Now we have the Sun squaring Uranus. Now that's happening. There's a Uranus Sun square going on right now, and that's going to continue on into the day tomorrow. On Tuesday, the Sun begins to move past Uranus a little bit, and then it's moving on. So right now we're in that kind of bittersweet spot between the sun and Uranus and squaring off. So tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of rebellious energy. There's going to be a lot of rebellious energy in the world tomorrow. Just note that, okay? Just note that, and just see what happens, across the airwaves, across the tangled airwaves. It's bizarre. This time we live in it's utterly bizarre. Have you seen anything like this before? How about the thing with Moby? How weird was that? If you haven't been paying attention, Moby just publicly made an off-the-cuff comment that some friends of his in the CIA wanted him to promote the Trump dossier scandal or the Trump Russia scandal. Some friends of his in the CIA. I mean, is that telling or what? I think Moby, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a Pisces. I think he's a Pisces. Don't hold me to it, but I think he's a Pisces. I actually interviewed him, and I kind of hung out with him one night. When I say kind of, it was odd. I mean, he was at this bar, and there were a group of us who'd interviewed him. I interviewed him. He's actually a really smart guy. And I sat down and at the bar, and he was there, and he was going to meet. And I interviewed, but I didn't walk up to him. I didn't feel like I wanted to talk to Moby or hang out with Moby. I just sat at the bar and I watched all these other people talk to him, and I had a few drinks and I went on my way. It was odd. I mean, I could have said, hey, what's going on? But for whatever reason, I didn't. I'd already interviewed him. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of rebellious energy tomorrow. Just take note of it. Watch it. And it might even come from the executive office in Capricorn. All these planets now, well, not all these planets, but primarily Saturn. Saturn's going to start to line up against Trump's Cancerian planets. Talked about it over the last couple of weeks. And I'll tell you right now, if Trump does not have this DACA passed, he's going to absolutely lose his base. Okay, he's going to lose his base. This is going to be it. So if you're on the pro DACA side, meaning that you want these people to have amnesty, and if Trump passes it, I'm telling you right now, that domino is going to fall, and that's Saturn opposing his natal Mercury, his natal Venus, and ultimately his natal Saturn in Cancer. That's when he'll lose his base. It's not the wall. It's going to be just so keep your eyes on this. It'll be very interesting. And who knows? We might actually go into another distraction before that happens. What else is going on in the chart? We've got that Mars-Jupiter conjunction. And Jupiter doesn't really creep up on Mars. Mars is ahead of Jupiter at this point. It's about as close as this conjunction is going to get right now. So Jupiter is at 18 and Mars is at 23 in Scorpio. And you want to know where Scorpio is in your chart. Right now, it's in the second house. So just in the grand scheme of things, here in Austin, Texas, lots of resources, theoretically, in Austin, Texas. And because that's what the second house represents. It represents hard assets. Scorpio represents other people's money and other people's resources. And we have Jupiter there right now. So there's an abundance of resources here available in Austin. It's got to go out and find them. I'll give you a little piece on Jupiter in the second house. My father had Jupiter in the second house. In fact, he had Jupiter in Scorpio in the second house. My father never, I think he finished his 10th grade year in high school. And he got his GED, and he never made more than $45,000 a year. But he drove Cadillacs, Mercedes, had boats, had every kind of gadget or toy that he ever wanted. He was the ultimate hobbyist. He was a Leo. If he wanted a hobby, he would indulge in it. And he never made more than 45 grand a year. How did he do it? Well, first of all, he had Jupiter in the second house. This is what happens when people have Jupiter in the second house. They just get things. They have their stuff. They have their things. It's all there. They don't really have to worry about money they have to work, sure. But things just came. Obviously, my mother worked, and they had these things called credit cards as well. Other people's money, right? That's Scorpio in the second house. But he never wanted for any material good. Jupiter in the second house. And I'll tell you who else has Jupiter in the second house is my son. He has Jupiter and Virgo in the second house. He had an iPhone before I did. Okay. And he had an iPhone at what, like 11 or 12? And I was sporting a Kyocera or something, you know? So this is the nature of Jupiter in the second house. If you've got Jupiter going through your second house in your chart right now, should be a very, very good time for you. Just don't overspend on the credit side of things. Take it easy on the credit side of things. Jupiter is in a kind of a wide trine with Neptune. In fact, it's moved past Neptune. Mars has moved past Neptune. That's not really happening. So the real action in this chart right now is that stellium, that massive superstellium in Capricorn. It's a very interesting aspect. And you know, Capricorn rules time. We talked about this on the Friday show when I was talking about timelines. I mean, if you want to look at a time portal, boy, I would say that moon conjunction of the sun, that's going to happen, getting close to tomorrow night, Tuesday morning. That's going to be a really, really interesting time as it relates to time. Keep your eyes peeled for stories about time over the course of the next 48 hours. Just look for them. I guarantee you're going to see some pop up. Can we reorder the time in our life? Is that possible? Well, one could say through God's loving grace, all things are possible, which is true. But can we actually consciously reorder the time in our life? Well, I'm telling you right now, with this this Moon-Pluto conjunction and the letting go that is part of this balsamic Moon-Pluto conjunction, we can theoretically say goodbye to our past in a way that can be very clear and very fixed, because Pluto is a fixed planet. Even though it's in Capricorn, it's a cardinal sign. And what happens then is that I think we have the opportunity to impact how we move along our own personal timeline. And this is really, it's right here, right now. It's right here, right now. Okay. Over the course of the next 48 hours with all these planets in Capricorn. So if you want to make a change, a fundamental change, and please use your discretion about your change. And it's usually going to be connected to letting go. Okay, letting go. Because once that moon moves forward and goes into that new phase, it's moving on the other side of the sun and it's moving into the future. Right now, the moon is in the past. It's behind the sun. It's in the past. It's a really interesting time. Really interesting time. Pay attention to time. Pay attention to stories about time around you. Okay. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring this other chart up. Now, you're going to have to dig for this chart because it's a pain in the butt. I have to say. It's a pain in the butt. But you can find it. And I'm going to give you the coordinates. Okay, are you ready? All right. So coordinates, you got to go into Google and look at this. You'll find the chart. But you got to go to Google and look at it. It's called Antichrist chart, February 1962. Okay, go find that chart. Antichrist chart, February 1962. This is one of the charts that got me axed from Gaia. It wasn't the only chart, but it was one of the charts. Let's put it that way. I was doing, God, I went off the res. It was really weird. It was like I knew my time with Gaia was coming to an end. It was really strange. It was a very strange experience. So I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to have this be my last show, I may as well make it memorable. And nobody ever said anything that was going to happen. I just had that feeling. So I did this show about Barack Obama and these charts that related him to possibly Frank Marshall Davis and Malcolm X as his father and stuff. It was interesting. And then I finally did the Antichrist chart. And I think that was it. I think that chart was a chart too far. Anyway, if you look at this chart, you'll see this is kind of well known in astrological circles. If you look at this chart, you'll see just as many planets as we've seen in Capricorn and more. So it starts off with the sun at 15 degrees. We got the new moon right there at 15 degrees, Mercury at 16 degrees, Saturn at 17 degrees, the south node in Aquarius. Oh, aren't we at that south node part in Aquarius now? Where's the south node now? Let me just check. This is interesting. No, we passed that point because the true node is at 14. And so we passed that point, what about sometime last week? Oh, that's interesting. South node in Aquarius, Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius with Scorpio on the ascendant. If you find that chart, look at it. You have the opposition to the true node and all those planets just opposing the true node and to some degree the midheaven. Then you've got the Virgo planets in the 10th house, Pluto and Uranus, well, Uranus and Leo conjunct the midheaven, and Pluto and Virgo, 10th house. So we have sort of the radical energy, the revolutionary, the rebel, and then we have the transformer, the rebel and the transformer in the 10th house. And then Neptune in the 12th house, which is in its own house. And by the way, this is what I call the aspect of the natural born mystic. When somebody has Neptune in the 12th house, they are naturally mystically oriented and inclined. They are running a spiritual current from the time they take their first breath. Not everybody's like that, by the way. Some people have to find it in this lifetime. Some people never find it. Neptune 12th house people it's like they've already got the software. They've already got the program. And then we have Scorpio rising. Oh, look at that. 25 degrees Scorpio rising. So we have this intensity. And the thing with this chart, it's all in the third house, which is Gemini's house in duality. And we have light and we have dark. And we have sort of this, the devil's advocate. And all in Aquarius, too, which makes it incredibly humanitarian. So has this chart manifested yet? No, we haven't seen anybody on the social sphere or on the world stage that has demonstrated any connection to this chart. I think the closest person, if I'm not mistaken, is the country and western guitarist and musician and singer Clint Black. I believe Clint Black is actually born on this day. But even though it sounds like a very dark name, I don't believe Clint Black is the Antichrist. But I'll tell you, I think who's born either the day after or the day before is Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses. Now, I don't think Axl Rose is the Antichrist, but he may have sat down and had a conversation with him at one point. Axl Rose, what a piece of work, man. What a poor, messed up, abused young man he was. Anyway, I just wanted to show you this chart. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. So when I was looking at the chart of the moment with that big stellium in Capricorn, and this just completely reminded me of it. So this person would be 2 years older than me. So that would be, let's see, 2 years younger than me. So they would be 55 right now. Entering into the halls of power, as it were. So there you go. There's the Antichrist chart from February 1962. Okay. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to, there are a couple other charts I wanted to go over. Now, you're not going to see this unless you go to astro.com. So try to find this chart. This is a really fascinating chart. Really, really, really fascinating chart. It is the chart for Dave Grohl. Okay, Dave Grohl, who is he was the drummer of Nirvana, and then he became the singer and guitar player for the Foo Fighters. Now, today is Dave Grohl's birthday. So you can go into, if you go to the front page, you'll see Astro Data Bank, birthday on January 15th. If you click on that, and you change the 15 to 14, what you'll do is you'll just, or you can just look up Dave Grohl astrological chart. You find that, and I'm going to show you some very interesting things about astrology and the astrology of transformation in Dave Grohl's chart. Okay. So I'll give you a minute or two to find that chart, and we'll get into this, and it'll kind of blow your mind what we're going to see here with this chart. So one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to look at how the death of Kurt Cobain affected Dave Grohl. And because Dave Grohl was a drummer for Nirvana. Now he didn't take over and become the singer for Nirvana. That didn't happen. But he moved from behind the drums to become, in a lot of ways, the leader of a band that was even bigger than Nirvana. Now, Nirvana might have had more of a cultural impact than the Foo Fighters, but I'll tell you right now, the Foo Fighters have sold more records than Nirvana. Dave Grohl has eclipsed Kurt Cobain. So what I want to do is I'm going to tell you right now that Kurt Cobain died on April 5th, and that was the year 1994, April 5th, 1994. Now, what I did is I didn't drop a chart, but I went into April 5th, 1994 to find out where the planets were and how they'd impact Dave Grohl. Well, for instance, Dave Grohl is a Capricorn rising, and his sun is at 24 degrees Capricorn. Okay, 24 degrees Capricorn. On April 4th, right? April 4th, 1994, Uranus was at 26 Capricorn. So Uranus was just 2 degrees off of Dave Grohl's sun at that time, which meant that Dave Grohl, with the sun in the first house, was going to go through a radical change. A radical change. Okay, that's just one marker. Not only would he go through radical change, but the radical change would even see him changing instruments and becoming that first house sun, becoming that kind of that leader, right? With the sun in the first house, close to the ascendant. There's more here. There's a lot more with this. So at that time, now he's got Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in Libra, and Pluto was in the sign of Virgo at that time, well, in his chart. So if we want to look at, well, what's going on with Jupiter and Uranus, what's going on with the sign of Aries? Well, first of all, the sun at that time was at 13 degrees Aries. And let's see, where's this Jupiter? Jupiter is 5 and Uranus is 3. There was an Aries connection here. Where is it? It was Venus. Right. Okay. So Venus was at 2 degrees Aries, and that was okay. Okay. It's the sun. My bad. It's the sun. So the sun is at 13 degrees Aries the day Kurt Cobain died. And if you look at Dave Grohl's true node, it's in Aries. And he has Saturn also in Aries. And his true node, in this case, it's the mean node, is at 3 degrees, and Saturn is at 19, and the sun is at 13. So the sun is right between the true node and Saturn in his chart. Okay, so we have a 19-degree sun in Aries, and we have Uranus in Libra. So what does that mean with the sun in Aries? Well, first of all, over the course of the next couple days, that sun, after the death of Kurt Cobain, is going to conjunct his Saturn. So that's not your typical Saturn-Sun conjunction. See, that would happen once a year for Dave Grohl. But on the heels of the death of Kurt Cobain, that would happen once in a lifetime. So that Sun-Saturn conjunction was powerful and impactful, while at the same time, Uranus is on his sun. So there are these forces, and look at the Sun-Saturn square. So this Sun-Saturn conjunction squaring his sun, he's going to have a Sun-Sun square. That is going to be an incredibly trying time. And it's going to torque. It's going to torque Dave Grohl. And that Uranus conjunction to the sun is going to radically change who he is. The other thing that was really interesting was this Scorpio bit. If you look at his midheaven, he's got the midheaven at, was that 13 Scorpio? And if you look at Jupiter, Jupiter is at 12. Is at 12 degrees Scorpio when Kurt Cobain died. So Jupiter was conjuncting Dave Grohl's midheaven. In what sign? Scorpio, the planet of the sign of death. So Jupiter was going to perform an expansive operation in Dave Grohl's life, right there, it's right at the time of Kurt Cobain's death. 12 degrees, Jupiter, Scorpio midheaven, opportunity through death. The radical transformation of the individual with Uranus on his sun, and then the Sun-Saturn conjunction right after the death of Kurt Cobain. You want to see really powerful transits in action where you can actually see the guy's life change. I mean, this is clearly one of those examples. It's a very powerful example. What else does he have? He's got Mars was in Pisces at that time. And Cobain was a double Pisces. Pisces rising, Pisces sun. So Mars was in his first house. That's violence. Let's see. Venus is in Pisces. And Grohl's Venus is in Pisces at 10 degrees. So at that time, Venus was in Taurus at 3 degrees. That doesn't really matter much. And then Grohl has some Sag planets. The moon was in Libra. So it was on the 4th. No, it was in Capricorn. The moon was in Capricorn. How about that? Moon was in Capricorn. Interesting, really. But to me, I just wanted to point this out. Saturn was on his Venus. Saturn was at 8 degrees and his Venus is at 10. So you had a Saturn-Venus conjunction. Saturn-Venus conjunction. Venus's relationships. Saturn was squaring Neptune at that time. So Saturn conjunct Venus. Uranus conjunct the sun. Jupiter conjunct the midheaven. And then that transiting Sun-Saturn conjunction. Venus relationships, second house, primary, foundational. A lot of that's interesting too, because Cobain was like 0 degrees Pisces, right? So he would bond with Piscean people. He would bond with Piscean people with Venus down there in the second house. And that Saturn conjunction with Venus would be the end of a contract. So this is what happens when Saturn conjuncts Venus. You get to renew your contract if you can, because these contracts that we have with Saturn, they come due. So and Venus is all about contracts. So this is a really interesting chart. And I just thought you people out there who can grab this chart and can see this. And maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll do a death chart for the Cobain thing, and I'll do this. I'll put this on the site. I just grabbed it because I was looking at who was born today, and it kind of blew me away when I saw all these aspects. All right, hey, it's 11:11. It's 11:11 here in Austin, Texas. Let me check in with y'all, see how y'all doing. Should I wear my cowboy hat? Where's my cowboy hat? That's right over there. Give you the full Austin experience. Let's see what's going on with people. We got 62 people. Hey, that's a nice little robust chat room. Okay, here we go. What do we got? We got Anna. Hi. Oh, Jan, hi. This is a great show. Good. I can post it. All right. Ivan's posted it. It's too long to post the link. What What else do we have here? Certainly Capricorn energy. Agree Hawaii will shake it out of you. Good or bad, my favorite place on earth. I love Hawaii, but I've had my ass kicked by Hawaii. Really, totally. Hi, Gene. I was thinking about you today, Gene. I was thinking about you and your sister today. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you showed up today. I was wondering, what happened to those Fernandez girls? I haven't talked to them in a long time. I was gonna send you an email. Too much Aquarius. Sheryl Crow, Axl Rose. Yeah, I didn't. Was Sheryl Crow born that time? I know Axl Rose was. I didn't. Yeah, I knew Sheryl Crow was an Aquarius. That's a lot of Aquarius. That's a ton of Aquarius. All right, so we're an hour and 5 minutes into the show. Why don't we do this? Why don't we have a little Q&A period for a little while if you guys want to ask me any questions. And then I think we're going to kind of wrap it up because I know a lot of people are probably want to get to sleep and probably aren't doing all that well physically right. There's so much flu going on out there. And it's like this mega flu. So this is a kind of a good show to get back in the swing of things with. Robin says, I see a lot of young people obsessed with Kurt Cobain, especially those that are having addiction problems. Yeah, of course. He's a double Pisces. He's a total double Pisces. And if you have any kind of sensitivity, any kind of really open emotional center, you'll be able to tap into Kurt Cobain because he's almost like a cipher in some ways. You know, that guy was bleeding emotion. You don't even have to really know much about him because he was a double Pisces. He was just an open channel. And that's a very collective energy, by the way, that double Pisces with the sun in the first house and Pisces rising. And of course, it's very Christ-like, you know, and Christ took on the suffering for others. And so maybe it's just a bit misplaced in some ways, but I could totally see that. What are your thoughts on Hawaii? Well, I think it was a psyop. That's what I said earlier in the show. I mean, you have Kim and you have Moon, and Moon, by the way, is an Aquarius. So this Moon coming up in Aquarius is going to be very interesting for Moon, who is the not just because it's the Moon, but he's an Aquarian and he's been trying to build, you know, this Aquarian bridge to Kim Jong-un. And I think what they did, I think Kim Jong-un decided to, you know, and maybe he got some instructions from the Russians. But this, you know, it reminds me, this is what it reminds me of. It reminds me of when the United States said that Syria had all this gas, all these chemical weapons, right? And what Russia did is Russia went in and they said, hey, we're going to be responsible for this gas. We'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. So theoretically, that's what the Russians did. And they completely pulled the rug out from the United States when they did that. And I think this is very similar in that Kim Jong-un decided he was going to pull the rug out from the United States by having these talks with Moon. And then I believe that the United States, in its partners in crime, don't want that to happen because they want an able threat, right? They want an able threat and a danger, a constant danger. So we're always in this fight or flight experience. So this is what I think. I think they just decided to up the ante and see what people would do and somehow keep that fear, you know, floating around the noosphere. So these, you know, fourth dimensional parasites can come in and feast off of it. And so somebody, Heather, who I'm going to be doing a little bit of a show with coming up here. She sent me the alert on Saturday morning about the sirens going off in Hawaii. And you know what I did? I did not forward that to anybody. And even if it was true, I didn't want to get people. It's like, okay, fine. Let's just see where this goes. I'm just not going to buy into this right now. I'm just not doing it. So let's see. Linda says, just did a chart on someone experiencing menstrual hemorrhaging. Is it coming from her Mars and Cancer, do you think? Oh, boy. Yeah. Where's her? Yeah. So what houses are Mars in, Linda? What house? What does and North Node transiting the 12th house mean? Well, so the North Node through transits is more like, oh, second house Mars, Cancer. Yeah, that's really physical, isn't it? It's like taking physical form in the second house. Is it squaring anything right now? It's opposing these Pluto planets, what, in their eighth house, right? That all the Capricornian planets. Yeah, zero Cancer. Okay, so it's opposing Saturn. So her Mars is at zero Cancer, transiting Saturn's opposed her Mars. That's where my Mars is zero Cancer. Maybe I should be menstruating. Maybe I am. I don't know. Wouldn't be showing it. It's all that. Isn't that a cardinal line? Yes, it is. Very good, Sally. Nice. Nicely done. Let's see. Hold on. What else do we have here? What do we have? Okay. Joe, so transiting, the difference between, in my estimation, between the transiting node and the nodes of the inside of your chart is the nodes inside of your chart are always there, and they're always in aspect or mostly in aspect with other planets. And that's like, you go here, you go in this direction, you go to this house, and you go to this sign, and you mine it, right? That is a mining pit for an entire lifetime. Okay, you already mined the South Node. So, but with transiting nodes, those are more like markers. And so, if you've got transiting node going through your 12th house, to me, that's a timeout period. It's like, timeout, rehabilitate, rest. If you want to work, get into a 12th house occupation. So that's what I would recommend. It's not a time because the South Node's in the 6th house, right? And so you want to reorient your work during that time. Let's see. You mentioned, so Sally says, you mentioned somewhere. Well, I actually think, okay, Sally, I remember this comment because you're really keen on this. And I actually think that it's when Mars goes into Aquarius, not in February. I'm gonna recant that because I was trying to get to the Mars Aquarius thing. So when Mars goes into Aquarius, that's when I think Bitcoin could have a bit of a challenge. And I don't have the Bitcoin chart up in front of me, but it's also the retrograde Mars action, because Bitcoin is mostly Capricorn and Aquarius and Pisces. That's when it came online. So it's the last 3 signs of the zodiac. Notice that Dave Grohl had Neptune and Scorpio 20 degrees on the midheaven. Is this considered? No, it's so an aneretic degrees at 29, 20. So he's 1 degree off of the aneretic degree. Great question. Now the last 2 degrees, and these are primarily the inner planets, but I guess at the midheaven we could really get into this. The last 2 degrees of a planet in a sign, the energy starts to go wobbly and crazy, that it can be all over the place. It's because what we're looking at, and this is the sort of the metaphor that I use, is that when we have a sign, it starts off at 0 degrees. It's like the birth of a star. Then it goes through all the various degrees until it gets to the last degrees. And what happens when a star gets to the end of its life? It's supernovas, right? And then what happens? Then it implodes and it becomes inert. And then sometimes there's a new star that's born out of it. Okay. So this is what happens with signs. With signs. So we have a sign at 0 degrees. It's really fresh. It's intense. First 9 degrees, shine, shine, shine. And then the power begins to diminish. But those last 2 degrees, 27, 28, it's all over the place. It's fluorescing. And then 29, it inverts. And there's nothing left at 29. Nothing left. And then it goes to theoretically, 30, 0. And then, hey, it's a new party again. So he had 28 degrees in the midheaven. No, it's not. What's up with Neptune at the aneretic degree in any house? I tend to think that it's the inner planets that are going to be more kind of impacted by that aneretic degree to some degree, but it depends. So you're talking like 29 degrees Scorpio, Neptune, Scorpio. I mean, it could mean that, for you, in terms of a personal relationship with Scorpio, that you might have moments over the course of a lifetime where, and not a lot, it might be kind of rare, where you may have the opportunity to kind of surrender, let go, repent, those very Neptunian kinds of things. But through Scorpio, it would also include some form of darkness. So the 29th degree would bring you kind of to the end of something, right? Like, okay, I'm tired of this. I want more clarity. I want more, transformation in my life. That could be part of it, Or the other piece, if you're not surrendering, it could be like the last stand with temptation at 29 degrees, Neptune and Scorpio. But I tend to think that the anaretic degrees are more important on the inner planets. Now, in Dave Grohl's case, on the midheaven, that's important because that's a cardinal point. So that 28th degree is going to be this energy that's going to go kind of crazy on his midheaven. And I'm sure there was a weird period of time, where he went from being Dave Grohl, the drummer, to Dave Grohl, the leader of the Foo Fighters. Can you say something about Saturn and the true node? Saturn and the true node on the descendant. Well, sure. I think you and I talked about this. Saturn and the true node on the descendant. Okay. Saturn on the descendant I actually like. It's not the easiest place for Saturn, but there tends to be this sense that there's at the very least, because Saturn limits, right? That's the nature of Saturn. It doesn't give you a lot, but what you do get theoretically is going to be really important. So as far as relationships go, because the descendant is of the 7th house, you may not have a lot of relationships in this lifetime, but the ones you do have are going to be either A, long lasting, or B, deeply impactful. Okay, deeply impactful. The true node in the same spot is an indication that, hey, if you're not getting the lesson with Saturn, you should be getting it with the true node, which means that you need to invest in relationship, invest in long-term relationship. This would not be an aspect where I would say, I would not promote, I don't know. How do I phrase this without being politically incorrect? But I wouldn't promote like serial monogamy with true node and Saturn. Like you might even go periods where you wouldn't have a relationship. You may have people that you connect with. You could have partnership, but that one-on-one, you may go through, periods of traveling through the desert until you find one that's really solid and substantial. But that's just like one-on-one, two people bonding together. There are other levels of partnership that can be business related, which don't necessarily have to be the same kind of long-term, long-lasting, enduring kinds of, me and you together for eternity kinds of relationships, although they can have some of that embedded in it, but that can also be very functional. The two people enter into a contract from a very Saturnian perspective. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? Let's cut through the bullshit. Let's not be sentimental about it. And let's get down to business. It's not the most romantic aspect unless you wait till you're about 65, which it will be. Let's see. My daughter has something similar in long-term relationship, 8 years, and she's only 27. There you go. What is my Myers-Briggs personality type? I think I always get these confused. I think I'm an INFP or ENFP, one of the two. I always get them confused, but it's one of those two. Mars. My thoughts on human design. I think human design is really, hey, there's Astro Lunatic. Hi, Susan. I think human design is really interesting. I want to get more well versed. I know a little bit to be dangerous. I think human design is fascinating because once I found out I was a projector, it changed my life. And I first of all legitimize what I do. Totally legitimize what I do. It's like, oh, I get what I do. I get why I do what I do, because projectors are people that deal with systems and other people, and they're intuitive and they're guides. So I got that. Okay, I get it. The other part I didn't like about it was I had to wait for the invitation. And I thought that was just fucking lame, right? I don't want to wait for the invitation. I want to do it. I want to do it my way, my will, you know? And it's like, whenever I did that, it never worked for me. Never. Anytime I set out to do something like that, like, I'm going to go do this, it just didn't work. But when somebody invited me for something, when I started to look at that, it was like, wow, this is really great. You know, I get this invitation thing. The hard thing with waiting for the invitation is that when you're a projector, and this is the sort of the nexus of the projector, is that you have to be positive. You have to be positive because people don't want to invite, you know, surly, cynical assholes. They just don't want that. So what do they want? They say, wow, man, this is really cool. You know, I want to be part of this, or I want to experience this. So you get the invitation. So as a projector, you've got to be able to kind of stay up at a certain level. And the other thing with projectors is that you can't be around negative people. And I learned that one. That was a hard lesson for me. Very hard lesson for me because I had a lot of really romantic, dramatic types of relationships in my life. And some of them were quite negative. So, you know, I had to kind of move away from those things. And it's a pretty intense. I have a Scorpio rising, so I had to begin to change my perspective on some of those things. So I think it's really fascinating, and even the numbering system and the transpersonal line. And okay, so your manifesting generator. The manifesting generators are the generators. So people that don't know about human design, give you a quick rundown. It was started by this guy named Ra Uru, who was an advertising executive. He lived, I believe, in either Montreal or Toronto. So the urban legend around him is that he went out one day. He was in his apartment with his wife and kids. He went out one day for a pack of cigarettes, and he didn't return for like 3 years or something like that. And he wound up on Ibiza. And he was on Ibiza during the harmonic convergence. And apparently he got pinned down on this little casita that he was, you know, house sitting in Ibiza. And he couldn't move for 3 days. And there was this entity called the Voice that imprinted him with human design. And he got it. And human design is like this combination of the Kabbalah, I Ching, and astrology. Mostly I Ching and astrology, although it does use the Kabbalah. You can see it inside the design. And there are these gates, and the gates are the various hexagrams of the I Ching. And then planets show up inside the gates. And it's a fairly complex system. There are 5 types. There's the generator, the manifesting generator, the projector, the manifestor, and the reflector. The reflector, the manifestor, I think the reflector is like 1% of the population. Manifestors are about 4%. Projectors, I think, are around 18%. And the rest are combination manifesting generator and generator. Fascinating stuff. Each sign has its own strategy. The generators have to respond to life situations. Projectors wait for the invitation. Manifestors, they announce what they're going to do. If you have ever run into a manifestor that has done something and they haven't told you what they were going to do, I'll bet you wanted to kill that person. You didn't even know they were a manifestor. But I'll bet you that was this happens. I've seen it. I've seen it with manifestors. Because then what happens then is that they cross a line and it becomes an abuse of power. And then the reflector makes a decision and waits 30 days. I've met 2 reflectors in this lifetime. 2. And I've done, you know, I ask people their human design stuff a lot. So they're pretty unusual. I mean, and these people were unusual. Let's see. Sally says, I noted young people say 1625 these days have longer relationship than in my time. Okay. I'm a projector. Yes. Hard lesson to wait for those invites. It does work. It totally works. So one of these days, I'm going to add human design to my playbook. I'm going to go through the whole thing. That's what I want. But it's really hard, you know. I mean, time wise, just keeping up on this stuff all the time. Okay. Anybody else? Any more questions tonight? We had a bit of a drift in the chat room. Super interesting. Okay. Well, why don't we why don't we draw tonight's live stream to a close? And somewhere between now and next week, I got to figure out how to do these charts. But the problem is, I guess I'll look for an FAQ or something. Basically what YouTube did is YouTube, because we have to have this thing, it's like a encoder. And the gamers, all this live streaming stuff came out through the gamers. And OBS is the encoder that I've been using. So OBS was this interface between YouTube and my encoder. And so I could go into OBS and do certain things. Well, I think now YouTube has just built the encoder into this platform. So OBS is probably looking for a new partner, looking for a new date. All right. Hey, listen, have a good one, everybody, with that balsamic moon in Capricorn conjuncting Pluto. And just be gentle on yourself. This Capricorn energy can be very intense, super intense. Get into it. Feel it, move through it, let go of things, drop the baggage, move forward. This is it. This is the portal, the next 24 hours. But also be really gentle on yourself, because the other side of all that Capricorn is Cancer. And that's where all the nurturing and the loving and the bonding and the caring really comes through. So don't neglect any of that stuff. All right, everybody. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow on 15 Minutes of Flame. And next week on the live stream, we're up and running again. It's great to be back. I'm wishing everybody a fantastic 2018. It's the year of the Aeon. Big change is coming. Get ready for it and make it a part of your life in the most positive way. All right. Take good care. Good night, everyone.